Hi, thank you for joining us for this webinar, 5 Reasons Your Mental Health Organization Isn't Getting the Funding That You Need. Thank you so much for joining us. You're going to learn a lot of really valuable information today, and let's just go ahead and jump in. So, who is this for? This webinar is for anyone working with a mental health organization who wants to increase their grant funding to meet their budget, fulfill their mission, and serve more clients. A lot of us got into this work because we are passionate about it. We care about mental health. We care about our communities. And the truth is that it really takes money to make a mission happen. And so this webinar is for the people who are passionate about their mission and are ready to grow the money so that they can do more with their mission. So I want you guys to get as much out of this webinar as you humanly can, and there's a lot of really good information that I'm going to share with you that is going to revolutionize the way that you do grants and is going to transform your organization. So I need you to focus. And I know this is really hard in our world that we live in where you have a million jobs and you're wearing your 10th job duty hat of the day. But I need you to focus, turn off your phone, remove your distractions, don't multitask. And I invite you right now to really listen. Make the investment in yourself and in your organization right now to really focus and dial in on the information in this webinar. And this investment will pay dividends for you in the future in the way that you are able to work smarter instead of harder and accomplish more for your organization and ultimately fulfill your mission. And the good news is this focus is 45 minutes long. And so in the next 45 minutes, you are going to learn the top 5 reasons why your mental health organization isn't getting the grant money that you need to meet your mission and expand your services, and also how to correct those common mistakes and generate sustainable revenue for your organization. Now, something that you probably know is that for your organization to really grow and serve more revenue, or serve more people, excuse me, what you really need is sustainable revenue. Revenue that you can't depend on year to year isn't going to help you grow your program because most of our costs are costs that are going to continue year after year, like staffing. So you need that golden sustainable revenue. That is the ultimate goal, the ultimate desire for you to grow your organization and to meet your mission. And we're going to cover some ways that you can create more sustainable revenue for your organization. That said, I also want you to take a deep breath and relax. Nothing is for sale today. However, if you stick around to the end of the webinar, I have a special free gift for you. So not only is nothing for sale, but you're also getting something for free. And this something for free is very valuable, at least in my mind, as $497 is a lot of value to me. So if you stick around, and relax and really soak in everything that we have to offer for you today, you'll also get an extra bonus at the end. Now, I want to know if this sounds like you. Are you driven to meet the pressing needs you see in your community? Are you frustrated that you can't do more to meet those needs because of a lack of funding? Do you feel like your mission is unfulfilled because you can't meet the community's needs because you can't get the funding to do it? Are you exhausted? Exhausted from spinning your wheels to grow your mission and not getting the results that you want. And it all, again, comes back down to the money that you need to grow. And are you overwhelmed because you don't know what you are doing right or wrong to increase your funding? If so, this webinar is for you. The real problem is that you haven't discovered the secrets to unlocking sustainable grant funding for your mental health services. Again, what you need is sustainable funding, not just funding. You need it to be sustainable so that you can really grow your programs. Now, the good news is that once you make it, once you know this real problem, and once you make these 5 course corrections that I'm about to share with you, you are going to have that sustainable funding for your organization's mission, allowing you to provide the mental health services that your community needs. This sustainable funding is going to transform your organization. And by transforming your organization, it's going to transform your community and it's going to transform the lives of the people that you serve. Because that's what we're all in this for anyway, right? Is to really see our communities improve and really see the people that we serve succeed. Once you make it, you'll become more attractive to your organization and your community's leadership, and you'll be recognized for your success in meeting the community's needs and growing funding. You're going to stop spending late nights of exhaustion on grant proposals only to have them unfunded anyway, and to making your personal sacrifices for naught. Once you make it, you will feel fulfilled and energized in your work again to improve your community's mental health. We all got into this work because of our passion. That's what draws the mental health community together. And sometimes when we are spinning our wheels and we're not getting anywhere, instead of feeling the fulfillment and the energy that we felt when we first got into this industry, instead we feel downtrodden and exhausted and hopeless. And these 5 course corrections that I'm going to help you make, they are going to help you feel more fulfilled and energized in your work again like you did when you first started. Now, the one thing that you need to know is that there are 5 mistakes that you need to correct now, today, to garner the funding success to grow your mental health organization's mission. And I am going to show you exactly how to make those shifts. So buckle up, here we go. Who am I? I am Alex Dunn. I have a master's degree in social work. I am the $1 million grant lady. I am a veteran social worker with a passion for mental health and getting these agencies funded. And I have done that to the tune of more than $40 million in received grant funding. I am passionate about the work of mental health, and I know that mission does not happen without money. And so I am passionate about bringing money to organizations so that they can meet their mission. I am the founder of the Mental Health Grant Network and the creator of the Attractiveness Quotient for nonprofits, the author of the Mental Health Grants Report and numerous articles, the creator of the Area of Focus strategy to increase sustainable funding, the creator of the Core Cultivation strategy to increase the number of funders to organizations, and I have 10 years of mental health and grant writing experience. So that's who I am now. But what you don't know is that at one point I was lost. I was working with an organization that needed to make a major expansion. They were going to do a capital campaign. They needed to double their programs. They had this amazing vision to transform the way that they served people and to double the number of people that they served. And I was hired to increase their funding so that they could do it. But the truth is that I was lost and I had no idea how I was going to increase their funding to meet their goals. And so I developed these strategies at first when I started working with them to help them increase their funding. And we did. We increased their funding. They were able to double the number of individuals that they served in their programs, and they were able to transform the community with which they worked. Now, this might seem like an obvious question, but there are some good reasons why your organization should have more grant funding. Foundations gave a total of $66.9 billion in 2018. That's right, that's billion with a B. $66.9 billion in 2018. This information comes from Charity Navigator. Now, 12% of all charitable donations in the United States go to human services, including mental health. So that's a pretty big chunk of $66.9 billion. However, funding is competitive. There are a lot of people who will tell you that grant money is out there and it's free money, and it's like you just walk up to this tree and you just shake the money tree and the money just falls like leaves upon you, and it seems like it's all too good to be true. And there is a lot of grant funding out there, like I said, 66.9 billion just in private foundations. However, There are also 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the United States who are looking for that money. And just in the mental health field, GuideStar lists over 15,000 mental health organizations in the United States. So if you take the total charitable giving in 2018 and you average that across all 1.5 million nonprofit organizations, you will find that each organization got on average only $273 per organization. Now, most organizations cannot do very much with $273 when we're talking about transformative community change. And so that is why it is very important that you have the tools that you need to increase funding and that you have the expertise and the skills to really increase your funding because it's very competitive and it takes a lot of skill to compete well and succeed in that market. So let's take a second right now. We're going to go ahead and jump into the 5 course corrections that your organization needs to make in order to secure more of this grant funding to meet your mission. Now, the first course correction is that you need to realize that everything you think you know about how to win more grant money for your organization is likely wrong. Now, it pains me to tell you this. I'm a social worker. I don't like to tell people that they're wrong, but unfortunately, it is likely true. There is a lot of misconception out there, even among professional grant writers, about what it takes to win more grant money. And most people don't have it right. And there are very few people and very few organizations who actually get this right. And that's actually also your opportunity is if you are one of the organizations who gets it right and really learns what it takes to win more grant money, it will set you so far apart from these other organizations and allow the money to flow into your organization to help you meet your mission. Now, the national leader in grant training is an organization called Grant Central USA. They do trainings across the nation and have trained a ton of grant writers and nonprofits. And they have found that 97% of the people that they have trained nationwide were clueless as to what it took to really win grants. Now, clueless, had no idea as to what it took to really win grants. Rodney Walker, the president of Grant Central USA, says that most people think that winning more grant money is just about writing proposals. They are wrong. The belief that winning grant money is just about writing a great proposal separates below average grant results from outstanding grant results. There is so much more to winning grant money than just writing a great proposal. And the organizations that have above average results, they know that. And I'm going to teach you what else is required to increase sustainable grant funding for your organization. And when you change these things and when you get these things right, everything changes. The transformation is complete. It is real. It helps you to meet your mission. It helps you to serve more people. And it helps you to feel more fulfilled and energized in your work again. When you get this right, you begin gaining traction in your grant funding, and it becomes this snowball of success where the more and more money starts coming in, and success breeds success. And you get a little bit of money at first, and then it starts growing and growing, and the snowball starts rolling downhill. And by the time you're at the end of this process, it's like a giant avalanche of snowball of grant money that is coming into your organization. You waste less time on proposals that do not win. Because let's be honest, there is nothing more frustrating than pouring your time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into a proposal only to have it not win. That is not fun. You spend less overall time writing grants, but more time winning grants. Now, this is a distinction that's really important for organizations to understand and for you to understand. You can write grants all day long, but that doesn't mean that you're going to win more grants. There is a difference between organizations who write 10 grants but win more money than organizations who write 50 grants and still win less money. There's a difference between writing grants and winning grants, and that's one of the things that we're going to get into here in just a minute. You can grow the funding for your programs to help more people when you get this right. You create sustainability for your organization. Sustainability, what could your organization do with sustainability? What growth could you achieve? How many more people could you serve if you had sustainability? You're also going to gain credibility within your organization because you created this sustainability and you created this pathway for growth. And it's going to give you credibility in your community because you created this sustainability for the community and the services that you provide. And I think, most importantly, in my personal opinion, is that you're going to feel like you're fulfilling your mission, not just your organization's mission, but your personal mission, the calling that drove you to this work is going to feel more fulfilled when you get this right. Now, when you get this wrong, and there are a lot of organizations that have this wrong right now, you're going to waste an enormous amount of time and effort on grant applications only to have them lose. This is probably one of the most frustrating cycles to get into of applying and spending all of your time on these grant applications, sacrificing your energy, doing these at night, sacrificing your personal life, pouring everything into this only to have them lose is devastating. You waste all of your time writing grants instead of investing your time in winning grants. You're wasting your time if all you're focusing on is writing grants. You are investing your time if what you're thinking about is winning grants. You become discouraged and eventually you shy away from pursuing grants at all because who wants to sacrifice their personal lives and become even more exhausted than you already are to only lose? And that's discouraging. And if you do that enough times, you're going to shy away from doing grants at all. Your programs would starve for funding and less people would receive services when you get this wrong. When you get this wrong, you lose credibility within your organization and your community because your programs are starving, you're serving less people, you don't have the sustainability for the growth, and that causes you personally to lose credibility. And again, in my opinion, the most important thing is that when you get this wrong, you feel exhausted and unfulfilled. You don't feel like you're meeting your mission. You wonder why you decided to get into this work in the first place, and you might even wonder if it was a mistake. When you get this wrong, it can really have a devastating impact as far as burnout and your success within your organization and your personal life. Now, the proof is in the pudding. When I did some work for the JPS Foundation, when I started, they only had 4 grants. 4 grants from 4 organizations. That's all. They were using the old way of doing grants. Now, this old way is where you might identify a funder or you might identify a new program that you want to do. And you find a funder and you follow the funder's guidelines. You research him, you follow the funder's guidelines, you write one proposal for that program, you submit it, you cross your fingers, you say your prayers, you wait, mostly impatiently, for the funder to get back to you, and then you rinse and repeat. You find a new program that you want to do, another new program that you want to do. You find a funder, you follow the guidelines, you write one proposal for that program. You go back into your organization, you search for another thing that you want to do that's new. You find another funder, you follow those guidelines, you write another proposal that's completely different from all the other ones that you did. You cross your fingers, you say your prayers, and you rinse and repeat. Now, there is a new way of doing grants, and we're going to get into some of these things, but when you use the new way of doing grants, as I did when I did work for the JPS Foundation, they expanded to 27 separate grants from 27 separate funders in 21 months. That was a 675% increase. 675% increase just by switching from the old way of doing grants and the old philosophy to the new course corrections that we're about to make. Now, when you increase the number of funders that your organization have, this is really important because with increasing the number of funders, you're increasing sustainability. You're minimizing your organization's risk. You are creating more stability for them for their future. And so, while the dollar amount of funding that you receive is very important, it's also very important that you have several different funders in the mix. That way, if something happens to one of them, your organization doesn't go down the drain with them. You have other funders that can help support you. So that's very important. So that's course correction number one. Course correction number one, again, is understanding that everything that you think you know about doing grants and the old way of doing grants is wrong. Course correction number two is you take strategic action to become more attractive to funders. Now we have on here a picture from the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, which is one of my favorite Disney movies. And like the Beast at the beginning of the movie, you and your organization probably need a makeover. You're like at the beginning of the movie where the Beast scares Belle because he has no manners and he looks awful and he's really gruff and aggressive with her, and he's just not an attractive entity to her at all. And Belle is like your funder. And so if you are like the Beast in the beginning and you're rude and you're gruff and you need a makeover, your funders are not going to be very attracted to that. And they're not going to show up with the money. So you have to make this strategic action to become more attractive, just like the Beast did in the movie. He took strategic action to become more attractive to Belle. He started to change the way that he looked, and he groomed himself differently. He acted less gruffly. He was softer. He did all of those things to make himself more attractive to Belle, and we need to do all of those things with your organization to make you more attractive to funders. Now, I have a secret alert for you. Nearly all of the grant training online will only teach you how to write a grant, and they neglect to teach you how to be attractive and win grants. Now, this shift of being more attractive to funders has been a key to my clients' success, and it's something that not very many other people are going to teach you. So this is very valuable for you and your organization. I developed the attractiveness quotient. This is a system that will increase how attractive my clients are to potential funders. Funders are both very smart people and they're also a lot like high school students. They want to be seen with the most attractive organizations. And they generally know who is and who is not an attractive organization. That's their business, right? It's their business to know who the good organizations in town are. And so they generally know who and who not they want. Now, to increase attractiveness quotient, some of the components that are involved in that are the reputation in the community of the organization, their credibility, the organization's relationships, the organization's public documents, and also just the general manners of the organization and its staff. Now, time prohibits me from really going deeply into the attractiveness quotient and how to increase an organization's attractiveness quotient. We're going to move on to some other really important core changes that you need to make. So course correction number 3 is you need to stop treating funders like money trees. Now, I want all of you to pause for a second and say this with me. Funders are people, not money trees. Go ahead and say it. Funders are people, not money trees. We need to stop treating funders like they are money trees. We need to treat funders with respect. We need to remember that funders are philanthropists, and the word philanthropist actually means the love of mankind. These people, they have the same passion for helping people that you and I have. That's what drove them to this work, and that's why they're doing this work instead of any other work. And that passion of theirs and that philanthropy and that love of theirs needs to be valued And we need to quit treating them like money trees and start treating them like people who want to make a difference, just like we do. Um, and this is a lot like the book The Giving Tree. There are a lot of organizations where they go to funders and they only take and take and take. They walk up to their funder and they shake that money tree and they just wait for the money to fall down. A lot of times they're praying the money will fall down. They go up and they shake and shake and shake the money tree, just praying that the money will fall down. And then they run away with their money and they never give anything back to the organization. Um, we have to remember to also give to our funders so that they will be invested in your growth. If all you ever do from them is take and take and take, eventually they're going to be exhausted and burn out on you. And that's not what we want. We want them to be able, we want to invest in them so that they are willing to invest in us. This is a part of the core cultivation strategy that I have developed to help organizations develop better relations with their funders. And again, this comes back to funders are people too. They aren't just money trees, and you have to treat them that way. Now, the proof of this is in the pudding, so to speak. When I did work for the JPS Foundation, they only had 4 grants, and part of the reason was because they were treating funders like money trees. They were only going to them when it was time to ask them for money, and they were never going to them for anything else. When we changed this and we used my core cultivation strategy and we started treating funders like people instead of just like money trees, that's when the increase in grant funding started to happen. And it grew by 675% because we created these more balanced relations with funders. When I did work with Lena Pope, they needed to greatly increase their funding for a capital campaign and a program expansion campaign. And when we started, they didn't really have a balanced relation with their funders. It was much more about going to the funders when you needed the money and going up, grabbing the money, and running. But after we started to implement a core cultivation strategy, their funding increased by 500%. And this increase was also sustained with second and third year grants and an expansion in the number of funders that they had. And so, with both Lena Pope and JPS, this work that I did with them was about increasing their sustainability by one, increasing their funding because everybody could benefit from more money, increasing the number of years that an organization would give to them, getting those second and third year grants, and also increasing the number of funders so that there was less risk involved in an expansion. Now, what could your organization do with a 500% increase in your grant funding? 500%, I'm betting that you can do a whole lot more than what you're doing right now. And one of the ways that you can do that is through making this shift and this course correction away from treating funders like money trees and treating them like human beings and using a strategy like my core cultivation strategy. Course correction number 4 is that you smartly invest your time in winning more grants instead of in writing more grants. Now, I've kind of alluded to this difference earlier in the webinar, but there is a big difference between writing more grants and winning more grants. You could sit down and in a year crank out 100 applications. You could crank out 100 grant proposals, but that doesn't mean that you're going to win any more grant money at the end of the day. Now, it might mean that you win a little bit more, but it's not going to be 100 grants more worth. Um, Instead, we have to think about smartly investing our time and working smarter instead of harder, and investing our time in winning grants instead of wasting our time in writing grants. And that's a really big shift and a really big difference that your organization probably needs to make. So, for instance, I've worked before with an organization that wanted just to increase their number of grant applications. And so they looked at just increasing the number of applications that they sent out. And at the end of the day, they didn't actually win that much more in grant funding. And what they did after they worked with me instead is they looked at making these other course corrections and spent more time on those things, more effort and resources on those things, and ended up winning more grant money, even though that they didn't write as many applications as they thought that they would. Another way of looking at this is with my proven area of focus strategy. Now, this comes from some behavioral science. Behavioral science has a rule of three, and the idea is that there are only 3 to 5 things that anybody can do well at any one time. Now, you can try to do a lot more things, but the behavioral science says that you are really only going to succeed if you can narrow down your list to 3 to 5 things that you're really working on. Um, and so the area of focus strategy is about really focusing in on just a few things and strategically picking what you want to grant write for. This is about working smarter and not harder. And this is about really prioritizing what's going to be important for your organization's growth and strategically picking those areas to focus on for your grant funding. Now, the area of focus strategy, when I worked with the JPS Foundation, it allowed them to increase their number of grant applications by 7 times. And it also increased their number of funders by 6.5 times. This comes down to, again, working smarter and not harder. It was the same amount of effort to write 7 times more grant applications as it was in the effort to write, 7 times fewer applications. The area of focus strategy also created sustainability when I worked with Lena Pope's programs, and it allowed them that long-term growth that gave them the security to expand their programs and serve more people. And an area of focus strategy can also ease the management of the funds that you have and allow these organizations to increase their sustainability. Okay, course correction number 5 is you quit being a wallflower and you take your place on the dance floor. Now, a lot of times in the mental health field, we are a little bit more circumspect in the way that we work. We aren't very flashy. There was a lot of stigma with mental health when a lot of us started in this industry, and there still is stigma, of course. And so, because of that stigma, I think that sometimes we kind of fade into the background, and we don't really trumpet what our organization does from the hilltop, so to speak. And so we fade into the background because we want to be well, we're influenced by the stigma, and we also have these concerns about protecting our clients, and that's a really good thing that we want to protect our clients, of course. But when it comes to funding, these two things combined can kind of turn mental health organizations into wallflowers. And the problem with that is that funders will rarely walk up to a wallflower and ask them to dance with $1 million check. It just doesn't happen very often. I wish it happened. You wish it happened. It doesn't happen very often. And so, what we have to do is skillfully ask the funder to slow dance with us. This requires knowing how and when to ask the funder to dance. We have to take ourselves away from the wallflower and be the organization and show the funder that we are the organization that they want to fund, and almost make it to where they approach us and they want to fund us. And this is a very skillful transition from going and being the wallflower in the funding circle to being the center one on the dance floor, slow dancing with your funder who's handing you the $1 million check. And you have to believe in your organization's mission, and you have to be able to articulate why the funder should believe in you too. And that takes a whole different mindset from the mindset that I think is traditionally in the mental health field of being in the background and and being a little bit quieter about our impact in the community. So let's recap. what you need to win more grants is we went through these 5 course corrections that you need to win more grants. The first one, realize everything you think you know about grants is probably wrong. And don't feel bad about that. There's no shame in realizing that everything you think you know about grants is probably wrong, because 97% of organizations and 97% of grant writers are there with you. They think that they knew everything about winning grants, and they were wrong. There's no shame in being in that number. You need to strategically become more attractive to funders. You need to transform yourself from the beast in the beginning of Beauty and the Beast to the handsome, debonair beast turned prince that your funders are going to fall in love with. You need to stop treating funders like money trees. Again, everybody say it with me. Funders are people, not money trees. Say it. Funders are people, not money trees. I need you guys to keep saying that one until you believe it. You need to smartly invest your time in winning more grants instead of writing more grants. There's a difference, like we said, between writing more grants and winning more grants. If you are wasting your time writing more grants, you are doing just that. You are wasting your time. Instead, invest that time that you're spending on actually winning grants. And you need to quit being a wallflower and take your place on the dance floor. Today, I promised that you would learn the top 5 reasons why your mental health organization isn't getting the grant money that you need to meet your mission and expand your services, and how to correct those common mistakes to generate sustainable revenue for your organization. I want you to have this sustainable revenue so that you can grow your mission, so that you can help more people, and so that you can feel more personally fulfilled and energized in your work. And we went through those top 5 reasons. And I promise you that if you will make these course corrections, it's going to transform your organization, your community, and also your personal fulfillment in the work that you do. And so now you have a choice. You have a literal fork in the road. You can continue the old way of doing grants. This is being exhausted every time you write a grant and being frustrated at the rejections. It's doing these grants at the end of all of your other responsibilities as the last thing in the world that you want to do, and then ending up getting a rejection anyway after you made personal and professional sacrifices to get them done. It's about never having the sustainability that your organization needs to grow and feeling unfulfilled and defeated about the future of your work. That's the old way of doing grants. Another old way of doing grants is hiring a grant writer and training and developing them. Now, in my experience and according to industry standards, it takes about 1.5 years to really train up a grant writer. And the industry average for the number of years that any grant or any development professional is going to stay at an organization is 2.5 years or less. So the old way of getting grants is hiring a grant writer, spending a whole year and a half training them, and then you only having them for about a total of 2.5 years. So you're really only getting them for 1 year fully trained and fully functional. And that is an old, ineffective, and inefficient way of doing grants. Now, the new way of doing grants is incorporating these 5 course corrections. It's gaining sustainability for your organization to grow. It's becoming more credible and valuable to your organization and your community. It's about feeling fulfilled and energized in the future of your work. It's about switching from this old way of doing grants where you're hiring a grant writer that you're only going to have for about a year fully trained. And the real frustrating part about that is that a midpoint salary for a grant writer, at least in my area, is $67,000. And when you add in fringe benefits, it's a total employee cost of $85,000 to $90,000. And this is just an average grant writer with average results. The new way of doing grants is that you can work with a grant writer who has $40 million or more in funding success. You can find a grant writer who is very successful and very proven and work with them in a different way than hiring a full-time grant writer for your organization and only having them really up and running and doing well for about a year. Now this brings us to your opportunity. My team and I have set aside some time to talk to you in the next 48 hours about how you can apply these ideas to your life today. And the cost for this is zero. We have set aside some time to have a personal call with you and help you implement these 5 course corrections into your work. Now, who is this call for? This call is for organizations who are committed to take action on all 5 course corrections identified in this webinar, all 5 of them. This is for organizations who have identified funding needs for grants. They know what they would do. They know what they need the funding for. This call is not for organizations who are not willing to take action on all 5 of these course corrections. If you say to me, hey, Alex, I'm really only interested in 3 of these course corrections. I don't really want to work on how attractive we are to funders. Then I would say that this call is not for you. This call is not for organizations without identified specific funding needs for grants either. I can't help you if you don't know what you need the money for. Now, why we're doing this, on this call, we will help you get total clarity about the 5 course corrections you can take to increase funding for your organization. We're going to help you get total clarity about the exact steps you should take to go from writing grants to winning grants. We are going to help you make this transition. And if you want us to help you and we think you are a good fit, we may invite you to be one of our new clients that we take on this month. If we work together, we will take you through the same strategies that have helped the Millionaire Grant Lady raise $40 million in grant funding. We're going to use my area of focus strategy to help you work smarter and not harder, and to help your organization gain some sustainable funding from many different sources. We're going to use the attractiveness quotient to help your organization become more attractive to funders and make your success rate higher. And we're going to use the core cultivation strategy to help you treat funders as people and not as money trees, and improve the investments that they make in your organization. Now, these proven systems have increased funding for many organizations by 4 to 6 times. And I ask you, what would your organization do if you quadrupled, quintupled, or had funding that grew by that much? And how many more people could you serve, and how much more fulfilled would your mission be? So I would like you, if you meet these criteria, I would like you to book a call and allow us to help you in making these 5 course corrections. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're at the end of our time. I appreciate your time, and I wish you guys success in your grants in the future. Thank you.